Hi friends, welcome back to Latter Day Rooster, and today we are reading Mosiah chapter 21 with that.
Awesome.
Hina.
Mosiah chapter 21, huh?
Yep.
Who's going to go first?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Finally! That was the silliest thing ever.
Yeah.
Okay. And it came to pass that Limhi and his people returned to the city of Nephi, and did begin to dwell in the land again in peace. And it came to pass that after many days the Lamanites began again to be stirred up with anger against the Nephites. They began to come into the borders of the land around about. Now they durst not to slay them, because of the oath which their king made unto Limhi, but they would smite them on their cheeks, and exercise authority over them, and being put heavy burdens upon their backs to drive them, as would a dumb ass.
Yeah. A dumb ass, like a dumb donkey.
Yeah.
Donkeys are made to, they're beasts of burden. They're made to carry loads.
Yeah.
So,
And
except for our donkey, he just laughs and
farts.
yeah.
Farts and laughs. He has laughing gas. It's like every time he laughs, he'll pause and fart at the same time. Just he like hides his farts.
Yeah. All right, continuing on at verse 4. Yea, all this was done, that the word of the Lord might be fulfilled. And now the afflictions of the Nephites were great, and there was no way that they could deliver themselves out of their hands, for the Lamanites had surrounded them on every side. And it came to pass that the people began to murmur with the king because of their afflictions, and they began to be desirous to go against them into battle. And they did afflict the king sorely with their complaints. Therefore he granted unto them that they should do according to their desires. And they gathered themselves together again, and put on the armor, and went forth against the Lamanites to drive them out of their land. And it came to pass that the Lamanites did beat them, and drove them back, and slew many of them. And now there was a great mourning and lamentation among the people of Limhi, the widow mourning for her husband, and the son and their daughter mourning for their father, and their brothers for their brethren.
Now there were a great and many widows in the land, and did they cry mightily from day to day, for a great fear of the Lamanites had come upon them. And it came to pass that their continual cries did stir up the remainder of the people of Limhi to anger against the Lamanites. They went again to battle. They were driven back, suffering much loss. Yea, they went again, even the third time, suffered like the manner of those that were not slain, and returned to the city of Nephi. No, were not slain, and returned to the city of Nephi. Were not slain again.
And they did humble themselves even to the dust, subjecting themselves to the yoke of bondage, submitting themselves to be smitten, and to be driven to and fro, and burdened, according to the desires of their enemies. And they did humble themselves again in the depths of humility, and they did cry mightily to God. Yea, even all day long did they cry unto their God, that he would deliver them out of their afflictions. And now the Lord was slow to hear their cry because of their iniquities. Nevertheless, the Lord did hear their cries, and began to soften the hearts of the Lamanites, then that they began to ease their burdens. Yet the Lord did not see fit to deliver them out of bondage. And it came to pass that they began to prosper by degrees in the land, and began to raise grain more abundantly, in flocks and herds, that they did not suffer with hunger. Now there was a great number of women, more than there was of men. Therefore King Limhi commanded that every man should impart to the support of the widows and their children, that they might not perish with hunger. And this they did because of the greatness of the number that had been slain. Now the people of Limhi kept together in body as much as was possible, and secured their grain and their flocks. And the king himself did not trust his person without the walls of the city, unless he took guards with him, fearing that he might by some means fall into the hands of the Lamanites.
It caused that his people should watch the land round about, that by some means they might take those priests and that fled into the wilderness, who had stolen the daughters of the Lamanites, and that had caused such a great destruction to come upon them, for they were desirous to make them, that they might punish them, and carried off, and for they had come into the land of Nephi by night, and carried off their grain and many of their precious things. Therefore, they laid in wait for them. And it came to pass that there were no more disturbances between the Lamanites and the people of Limhi, even unto a time that Ammon and his brethren came unto the land.
So, and the king, having been without the gates of the city with his guard, discovered Ammon and his brethren, and supposing them to be priests of Noah, therefore he caused that they should be taken and bound and cast into prison. And had they been the priests of Noah, he would have caused that they should be put to death. But when he found that they were not, but that they were his brethren, and had came from the land of Zarahemla, he was filled with exceeding great joy. Now King Limhi had sent, previous to the coming of Ammon, a small number of men to search for the land of Zarahemla, but they could not find it, and they were lost in the wilderness. Nevertheless, they did find a land which had been peopled, yea, a land which was covered with dry bones, yea, a land which had been peopled and which had been destroyed. And they, having supposed it to be the land of Zarahemla, returned to the land of Nephi, having arrived in the borders of the land not many days before the coming of Ammon.
Excuse me.
And they brought a record with them, even a record of the people whose bones they had found, and it was engraven on plates of ore. And now Limhi was again filled with joy on learning of the mouth of Ammon that King Mosiah had a gift from God, whereby he could interpret such engravings. Yea, Ammon also did rejoice, and Ammon and his brethren were filled with sorrow, because so many of their brethren had been slain.
And also that King Noah and his priests had caused the people to commit so many sins and iniquities against God. And they also did mourn for the death of Abinadi, and also for the departure of Alma. And the people went with him who had formed the church of God through the strength and power of God, and faith on the words which had been spoken by Abinadi. Yea, they did mourn for their departure, for they knew not whither they had fled. Now they would have gladly joined them, and for they themselves had entered a covenant with God to keep him, to serve him, and keep his commandments. And now, since the coming of Ammoron, the king, Ammon, the king, Limhi also had entered a covenant with God, and also of many of his people to serve him and keep his commandments.
Yeah. And it came to pass that King Limhi and many of his people were desirous to be baptized, but there was none in the land that had the authority from God. And Ammon declined doing this thing, considering himself an unworthy servant. Therefore they did not at that time form themselves into a church, waiting upon the Spirit of the Lord. Now they were desirous to become even as Alma and his brethren who had fled into the wilderness. They were desirous to be baptized as a witness and testimony that they were willing to serve God with all their hearts. Nevertheless, they did prolong the time, and account of their baptisms shall be given hereafter. And now, all of the study of Ammon and his people, and King Limhi and his people, was to deliver themselves out of the hands of the Lamanites from bondage. And that is Mosiah chapter 21.
Yeah.
Good job. Level up, level up. What time is it?
Joke time.
Joke time?
Yes.
I thought it was homework time.
No, there is no homework today.
Oh, okay. Who's going first?
Hmm.
What do you got?
Alright, so it takes guts to be an organ donor.
I guess it does, yeah.
Wait, does that actually say donor?
An organ donor?
Yeah, an organ donor.
You know what an organ donor is?
No.
So if somebody dies,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people will be an organ donor to where if they die but they still have a good lung, good kidney, or liver, or any of your organs,
Mm-hmm.
the doctors can take those and use them for people who need a transplant. If somebody's in good health but their liver's going bad, they're on a transplant list. And then if something comes up, then they could get it and make their life longer.
Oh, yeah. Like if they have like a bad gut.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
But it takes guts to be an organ donor.
Yeah. Because literally guts.
All right, what do you call somebody with no body and no nose?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. Good episode today.
Yep. See you next time on Latter-day Rooster.
Latter-day Rooster, on a quest to the light, reading through the stories, feeling oh so right. Join the march of hearts.
This has been a Stunt Brain production.